Tonight, the book of the month is Atomic Habits, and in the book he talks about doing little habits instead of big habits. It's sort of like the same kind of a book that many people was. And in the book he gives an example of a couple come home at night, every night, and what decides whether they work out that night is whether they start changing clothes. So the habit isn't that they're working out every night, it's whether they change clothes when they get home. If they come home, change clothes, they're going to work out. If they come home, sit on the couch, order pizza, it ain't going anywhere. So he talks about keeping your habits as small as you can to get to the next step. Because if you change your shoes to go running, you're going to go running. You're not going to change your shoes and say, nah. So, Atomic Habits is a very good book. Anybody in here know the difference between an alligator and a crocodile?
I have a feeling you're going to tell us.
Just kind of got to slam it.
An alligator will see you later, and a crocodile will see you after a while. We weren't sure Robin was going to make it tonight because he's had some work stuff where he's had to work till 7 o'clock quite a bit lately. So I had a presentation ready, and in my presentation I was going to talk about networking and the group here. Hey, Sergio. We have one person, Michelle, and she's only been at 2 meetings over the last 3 years because she's got little kids and she didn't like bringing them. And this last summer, if you went on the home tours, her home out in the country where the mobile homes were, that was her place. And that was her and her husband that we saw out there. Well, she called me up and said, hey, I do Facebook. You want me to help out with the Facebook? And I said, well, yeah, because I never do Facebook. So I called Reia up and I said, hey, you want somebody to kind of monitor that and kind of be on there? So she just kind of stepped up and now she's taking care of the Facebook. And I'm sure it makes everything better. I don't know because I don't do Facebook. I joined this group in 2015, and after, 6 months, a year, I asked Sergio and Rios, and back then, Giovanni, if maybe I could help by giving presenters for the meetings, and they said, oh, sure. And so we've been doing that ever since. So, don't think that whatever little thing you can do can't make the group better. Yeah, every little bit helps. I was in the office this morning, kind of cold. I'm not going to work when it's cold. I would have gone out this afternoon, but I didn't want to go out and then come back in and get ready for this, so I had to get an excuse. But Jacoby Kendrick, which I don't think anybody here has seen him, Sergio has. He calls me up and says, hey, I just got a house and we're rehabbing it. We totally demolished it. And if the group would like to see the house, we can do that, and then I can have them back out when we finish it. So we talked back and forth, and on the 26th, and I'll send everybody an email, on the 26th of this month, which is a Saturday, at 5 o'clock, anybody who wants to show up, and I'll send you the address. It's a 3-bedroom, 2 baths, what was it, 1,200 square feet. And like I said, it burned, and he sent me a video, and I'll send you a link to the video. You can see there's nothing in the house but smoke all over the walls and stuff. And so you'll be able to see how it starts. Jacoby has done several rehabs already, and he fixed and flips, and he also fixed and holds. I met Giovanni back in about 2013. He and I and some of the other people in here belong to Fortune Builders. And I started meeting with the Fortune Builders once a month, called them all up, said, hey, let's meet. And when I learned Jacoby, I learned that he was an Air Force Academy cadet graduate, and right then I knew I wanted to know him. Anybody graduates from any of the military academies, got something upstairs. And he played football the whole 4 years too, so, playing football and getting the grades for something. So anyways, just networking and getting to know each other, knowing who you can trust, who you can't. That's what this is all about. This is Robin Dassy.
Dassy.
Dassy. I knew I was going to mess that up. He's from Belgium. And in the book, I read the book, The Millionaire Next Door, about 20 years ago, 25 years. In that book, it says that if you're from a foreign country, you're 4 times more likely to become a millionaire here in the United States.
Wow.
So get to know him. He's going to become a millionaire. But really, that's the statistics. Tom Stanley did that book, and his daughter, Tom's died a couple of years ago, and his daughter's just about to come out with a new book. And I can't wait till it comes out because she's been studying the same thing her dad did, which is millionaires. So, yes.
Before we start into the program tonight, can I make an announcement?
One announcement.
Okay. There's a few people that helped this club to keep going, and I would really like to thank them since we're all together, and I didn't see some of you at Christmas, so I'd like to give a round of applause to Lee and Sergio and some of the people that are the backbone of this club. That when I first started, it was you and me and like 2 other guys. Now it's become this because they're so dedicated to keeping us together and meeting regularly. So if you wouldn't mind, I would
I'll stop at you.
We're grateful for you, knucklehead.
I'm not going to let you speak anymore. Anyways, he started the group, what, back in June or so?
May or June, yeah.
May or June. And then him and his wife bought their first duplex and closed in October. So they are fast study, they're up and running, and we're going to let him take it away.
All right, awesome. How's everyone going? All right, so like Lee said, my name is Robin. I'm actually from Belgium. I spent the first 17 years of my life out there, and then graduated high school. Not really sure what I was going to do in life. One of my teachers suggested that I spend a year abroad, and that's pretty much a decision that shaped the rest of my life. I decided to come to Kansas for a year. Spent a year out there studying in high school, and I've pretty much spent the rest of this entire time in the U.S., sometimes going back for a year, but that's pretty much all here. I went to college, community college in Garden City, Kansas, and then I moved to Odessa. A lot of people ask me how I got here and why I'm still here. The how is pretty much by accident. I just found a school with cheap tuition, and why I stayed is pretty much because of Alexis, because nobody in their right mind would stay here intentionally. I'm really happy that she came here today. She came here because she's skipping her workout to make sure I'm not saying anything stupid. So. All right, so I was 17, hadn't figured everything out yet. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I kind of went with the flow. And I'm 27, and I still haven't got it all figured out. And I know it's the case for a lot of people my age. We're still kind of lost. It's a difficult time to grow up, especially in the economy that's going on. So it's okay to not have it all figured out. I still don't have any idea what I'm doing. I just have the right people around me, and that helps a lot. So my story goes very quickly. After I finished college here, I did what everybody does after finishing college: get an interview to get a job. I got an interview, I got an offer, couldn't take the job because I didn't have my paperwork. So I didn't get to work until May, where I got a job with a hospital here at MCH because I had been volunteering at that hospital, and they knew me because I had a pharmacy tech trainee license. And so thanks to that, I got a job offer, and then the same company that had made me an offer earlier that year ended up hiring me, and I still work for this company to this day. I guess I made a decent impression, and so they ended up hiring me when they had an opening. It's really, I've really been lucky on that end. Since I didn't get to work for months, was pretty much at the mercy of the little bit of money that I had saved up during college, and Lexi supporting me for the entire time, and eating a lot of frozen hot dogs, so that wasn't pleasant. And I pretty much decided at that point that I'm gonna make sure that this never happens again, that I'm never stressed out for money, and that I'm never putting that much stress on my relationship because of poor finances. I started working at my current company, Catalyst, as a lab tech. The lab is a very weird environment. Everybody pretty much stays like in their little bubble. They just talk to the other lab people, but they don't really pay attention to everybody who comes in and out. And a lot of field people actually come in and out, and I was pretty much the only one interacting with them, which ended up getting me noticed by one of the field supervisors and getting me a position out in the field. It was pretty much a big promotion. And the biggest thing that came with that was an hour and a half, at least, daily commute to Pecos, and then an hour and a half back. That gave me a lot of time to think about everything that was going on, but most of all, I got really bored, and I had a really poor service out there, and so I kind of got pushed to providing my own entertainment. That's when I started getting really into a bunch of podcasts, and that would be pretty much around April. I started getting into a podcast about real estate called Bigger Pockets. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that thing. It's one of the biggest platforms for people who are investing in real estate, landlords and everything like that. And so when I first got into it, I just, took it as entertainment. But the more I listened to it and the stories that actually were in there, the more I thought that this was probably one of the best vehicles to get to the destination that is financial independence, financial freedom, and kind of staying away from that dark spot where I couldn't work and couldn't provide for my family. So started getting really into that, bothering my wife every day, coming back home saying that we needed to buy a house. And after a little while, first of all, we got engaged, and then we ended up getting married February of last year. And that's when I really decided that our apartment was getting too small for newlyweds and that we needed to get out. Started looking around, and the prices were horrendous. Houses are really, really expensive out here, for all of you that don't pay attention. But rent is also climbing. And so the way I looked at it was, I can either keep flushing $1,000 down the drain every month when I pay my rent, or acquire property and start building equity. The Bigger Pockets podcast helped me out a lot into determining what I wanted. I started looking into acquiring a multifamily unit. So I was going to get either a duplex, and you can get, with traditional financing, you can acquire 2, 3, or 4 unit building. And the idea was to what is called house hacking, and I hate that term, but you pretty much live in one of the units and rent the other one out. And the ultimate goal is to have either your mortgage covered by the tenant's rent, or almost, or even getting some cash flow on top of the rent. So I went kind of nuts on those podcasts because I was really thirsty for more information, because I do not like to make decisions. And when I do make decisions, I would like them to be really, really informed. So there's, I think, as of last Thursday, there was 312 episodes of that podcast, between 45 minutes to an hour, and I listened to all of these at twice the speed between April and October. So I sent a message to Lee saying, hey, I just graduated Bigger Pockets podcast, and I've listened to all of them. So I listened to that, and it helped a lot, because there is one of the hosts on there who's actually done what I was looking into doing, which is acquiring a unit, renting out half of it, and just living in the other one. So that was pretty much, we decided on that around May, and everything from May kind of like went really, really fast. I started attending the real estate meetings, real estate association meetings, and it was a great opportunity to network. The lectures, the presentations were really, really good. Yours was probably the first one I ever attended, actually. Yeah. And you actually gave out that list of all the contractors. That thing is gold, so thanks a lot for that. But it kind of builds up your confidence when you go to events and you see people who either are looking to do the same thing as you are, or have already done it, have already some units, things like that. So it's really good to build up your momentum, to keep coming here and come regularly and keep networking with people outside of it, because you only get to come here once a month, and it's not going to be enough. So that's what I found. So I started keeping in touch with Lee, communicating with him regularly, because I needed not only myself and my wife, I also needed someone else who was outside of our couple to keep me accountable and keep me going. So it was really good when I started coming here. It was a really good influence on my decisions in terms of real estate. So back in May, like I said, we decided on acquiring a duplex. That took a lot of convincing for a long, long time. But when I presented my wife with all of the financial upside, it wasn't really hard. You have to find the right way to present something to convince your significant other that it's a good decision. You can't just say, by the way, I've been listening to this podcast for 3 months and that's all I do all day, and we're gonna buy a house and rent the other half. And you're like, whoa. So that took a little bit of learning how to communicate it better. So the upside of what's called house hacking, so renting out one unit and living in the other, you get to offset your rental income by depreciating the asset. So your house loses value and you get to count that against the rental income that you make. So that's one of the good things. And then all of the expenses that you make that are related to your rental business, you can also discount them as business expenses. So I bought a printer that I print all my contracts with. It's going to be a tax deduction. I have a little office in my side of the unit that I'm going to get to deduct, I believe, at $5 per square foot. So it's really good. It's got more good sides than bad. The only bad side that we've been exposed to is sometimes your tenants may be a little bit reticent to sign the contracts, but that's pretty much it. We haven't had a whole lot of issues other than that. It's just getting from that apartment mentality where you're just a renter, you have to pay your rent, to being a homeowner and a landlord at the same time was quite a big jump to make, but it's a learning experience that we keep focusing on every day, and so far it hasn't been too bad. So let me get into the actual deal that happened. The thing that got us actually moving was, I've been analyzing deals online, but between scrolling online and actually doing things, your brain won't actually push you to go forward as long as you don't take action. So I've been scrolling online. That's what I spent all my nights doing before going to bed. I would just scroll on Zillow, scroll on Realtor.com, trying to find a multi-unit building. And then I just did nothing. I just looked at those prices and I said, oh, that one would be nice. The one thing that actually got us going is when we visited the first duplex, and we did that, I believe, in September. We went to a duplex absolutely unprepared. We were not pre-approved by a lender. We did not have a realtor working with us. We just wanted to go see a house and see what was going to happen. And so we went to see a duplex that seemed like a reach to us financially, but when I saw it, it was such a nice place, and I was so excited. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go get approved, and I'm going to try to sign it. And then 3 days later, it had already been bought cash. So that was a little bit of a bummer. But the good thing that came out of that is I met a great agent over there who was the seller's agent for that particular property, who happens to be sitting right there. And I didn't connect the dots, but I'd already met her I already met Julie at a meeting when we were at the sales team in Midland. And so when I remembered, I told her, oh, hey, I remember you now. I'm sorry, I didn't make the connection. And my wife and I decided that she had made such a good impression on us, just being that seller's agent, not really wanting to compromise the seller's relationship with her by representing both of us, saying that it wouldn't be right, it would kind of be a conflict of interest for her to represent both parties. And I really liked that, and I told her, look, if you don't mind, I would really like to work with you. And that was one of the best decisions I made, obviously, because I now have a duplex. So what happened was, as soon as we got pre-approved, one of my friends actually recommended a lender out of Lubbock who was really, really good at teaching us every step of the process, which is one of the things that you should look into in any professional that you start working with. Julie was really good at explaining everything that was going on, laying out step-by-step the plan, keeping in touch to make sure that we weren't freaking out too much. And our lender actually did really well at explaining to us what was going to happen, what we needed to do in order to be able to appraise that duplex and everything. So I think after September, we had seen that first duplex. I started talking to Julie. It took her 2 weeks to find a duplex that was not on the market. She actually caught the deal right before it got listed on the MLS, and that prevented us from having to fight with a bunch of cash buyers, which in this area, most duplexes are very hard to get, very hard to appraise, because any transaction doesn't make it to the MLS. It's usually getting bought right on the spot, like that first one we looked at. And so this deal actually was still off market when we saw it. It was an elderly couple who was living there, had been living there for 20 years, already had a tenant in one of the units, and they had renovated that unit in 2016. There was very minimal work to do on it. We just had a few cosmetic improvements to make, chip paints, things like that. And in the tenant's unit, I had to go fix their garbage disposal, their dishwasher, and a toilet, which I probably will never do again. It wasn't fun, it was not pleasant. And yeah, so pretty much I went to see that duplex on a Friday. My wife was not able to come because she was still at work, and I said, I'm really excited about this place. I really want us to put an offer on it. Saturday, we went back, looked at it again. She shared my feelings, so we were very, very excited. And so we're talking to Julie, saying, well, what can we do? What can we do? When can we put an offer in? And then the seller said, we really want to buy a house in Austin. We're going to Austin on Monday. We would really like to have an offer by Monday so we can show it to the sellers of the house that we were going to get. And we're just kind of shocked, but we were prepared at that point. So we were able to make an offer. They countered a couple of times, and then we ended up going a little bit lower, fortunately. But we ended up making an offer that Monday at our job place, where Julie had to drive at like 6 in the morning to sign all the paperwork before I headed out to work. So it was quite a quick deal. We ended up deciding to close on October 31st after seeing it, I think, the last week of September. And once we had all that done, it just went so quick. These people found a house right away, so we knew it was going to be fine. And the only thing that was missing was the appraisal. And to get an appraisal on one of these units is really difficult because there is almost no comparable sales in the recent past. Julie and our lender called, I think, over 30 appraisers in the area, and they only got 4 maybes, and one person ended up doing it, and it came out right at asking price. So we got really fortunate for that, but it was quite a ride. And so the great thing about acquiring multi-units from 2 to 4 units is that you can use conventional financing for it, or FHA loans, which allows you to buy a unit, get cash flow out of it with a very low down payment. So you can do 3.5% with FHA and 5% with conventional, which is really, really great when you have a starter budget and you don't have a whole lot of cash saved up. And it ended up being perfect for us. So, like I said, we ended up closing on October 31st. The previous owners ended up needing 5 days to stay in their house in order to gather their things and then leave. So the day I closed on that apartment, on those 2 units, my wife and I went to the previous owner's unit, collected a 5-day rent check from them, went next door, collected the November rent check, and ended up going home with 2 checks the first day we owned that property, which was pretty awesome. So the one thing that I realized while we did that is that we were actually trying to solve the previous owner's problems. The husband was in really poor health, and they wanted to move closer to their children, and they wanted it as fast as possible. So that closing date was putting a lot of pressure on us, and that appraisal stressed us out quite a bit. But thanks to the professionals that we had chosen to work with, it pretty much all went seamlessly. So it was really great. So there's a few lessons that I learned throughout all that. The first one being, real estate cannot be a one-man show. You will never be able to finish a deal by yourself. You cannot buy the property by yourself. You need to have a team around you. One of the very first thing is, if you have a significant other, you're gonna have to be a team and always make sure that you are on the same page for all decisions that regard real estate. The other thing is, you need to have a really good realtor. And I got really lucky that I had a really good realtor who had some connections to find that particular deal. It was a true gift. Like, we were not expecting to find a duplex that quickly. Also, your title company has to be pretty quick, has to be pretty good at communicating, which they were. We used Lone Star and Midland, and our lender was extraordinary. I mean, he emailed me, called me, I think he ended up calling me at 3 in the morning one day after I just had sent him a bunch of paperwork to tell me I needed to fix a couple of things. So he probably works too much for his own good. One of the other parts of the team, like I said, you need a couple of cheerleaders. I kept in touch with Lee, and I kept in touch with Julie and Steve a little bit. Not as much. Steve was more for discussions about flipping for later on, but it keeps you going when you have a lot of people around you who kind of try to push you towards your goal and who are doing the same thing as you are. So mostly being surrounded by people who have the same mentality and objectives as you have will help you progress towards your first deal if you haven't done one yet. Like I said earlier, I still don't have all my stuff figured out. I studied to be, I studied biology. I thought I was going to get into med school. Turned out it wasn't really my thing. It was really difficult for me to find the motivation to go to school for 4 more years and not enjoy my job. And this new career that I have found and my new interest in real estate actually are giving me a lot more options in terms of my future financially. So, like, you don't have to have it all figured out. It'll all come together at some point. It's also, as soon as I started listening to these podcasts about real estate, I noticed that it kind of lit a spark in me and got me going. And whether it's real estate or anything else, a business idea that you have, if you have something that actually is your passion, it will motivate you to get everything that you can together to do what you want to do, to reach your goals. One of the things that Lee has told me a lot about was you need to have a strong why in order to keep you going. My strong why is I really want to support my family and one day possibly be able to get my mom and my sister over and to be able to support them. They don't have any health issues or anything like that. I just like my family. And I want to, I know, because like there's all these sad stories, but I'm actually just want to be with my family and be able to support them and have people that I love around me. And that's really all that keeps me going, is to get my family and my wife and my mom and my sister happy. So that was my why. And I found that real estate was one of the vehicles that if I'm trying to achieve financial freedom, it is the vehicle that probably would get you there the quickest. And real estate, if you look overall, is the probably most likely vehicle to get you to financial freedom. There's a lot of people who get it through business, but most people who actually are millionaires do it through real estate or own real estate and rent it. The final lesson out of all of that is to be prepared. If you really want to have a deal in real estate, you have to be prepared. I went into that first house thinking I'm just going to be here kind of like a tourist, look and see what's going on. And then when I realized that there were deals to be had, I told my wife that we needed to get ready, which she had been telling me for months. I just had been shutting her out. But I told her, look, we need to get pre-approved. We're going to go talk to a lender. We're going to find a real estate agent, and we're going to get going. Because if you're not ready, real estate doesn't offer you tons of options constantly. It's just going to be probably this one deal once in a while that you can jump on, and when you're ready to bounce on it, which we fortunately were, you're going to be able to get a really good deal. I'm not super comfortable sharing actual numbers on this, but we got this duplex pretty much right at market value, which is not bad, because most people actually are getting right around or above asking price in this market, which is very competitive. And so, the we got really lucky that we were able to jump on that deal and to help the people and solve their issues, because they were really, really desperate to get out of here, as so many of us are, and to go back to their family. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it for the duplex. Few of the things that I looked at, the reason it is very practical to live in one unit and rent another. I believe we lived in a 850 square foot apartment, for which we paid $1,200 a month. It wasn't luxury apartments or anything like that. My friend sitting over there is in a 2-bedroom apartment right now who offered them to renew their rates at $2,400 a month. I looked at Zillow earlier, the current rental price is usually about $1.50 per square foot. The median rent in Midland was $1,700, which is pretty much an increase of 30% year over year. Rents are getting they're crazy right now, and so the fact that we moved into a unit and rented the other allows us to pretty much eliminate this entire rental amount that we spent every month, and to put that towards savings that we can then use to purchase another deal later on. The great thing about the financing options that we picked are that you can live in a unit for a year and then you're not obligated to live there anymore. So we can purchase this duplex for a very low amount and then move on to another unit after a year, which is really great, and it actually allows you to leverage it and accumulate units a lot faster than you would if you had to make a 20% down payment on every house you purchase. To thank y'all for bearing with me for this whole thing, I thought I'd let you know what all I use. I don't know if anybody is interested in all the podcasts that I've listened to, but I've listened to the Bigger Pockets podcasts. There's the Real Estate and the Money podcast. I've listened to Matt Therio's Epic Real Estate podcast, which is also really great. Comes out almost every day of the week. It has several themes throughout the week. So there's the days about financial independence, one day where they're trying to sell their turnkey properties, which is also pretty good to know about. I listen to Dave Ramsey too, because it helps to keep you in check when you're thinking about leveraging for every property, to have someone who tells you that it's bad. So that's pretty great. I also listen to The Indicator by Planet Money, as well as Planet Money. The Real Estate Guys are also a really good podcast. Few of the tools that I used while looking for the numbers for this deal, I used rentometer.com, which is really good to determine in your exact zip code, your exact area, what the surrounding rents are. I used Zillow, Realtor.com, and Trulio, of course, because those are always good to find comps. Although the best comps usually will be provided by your realtor because they have MLS access and they can actually see everything that's on the market or off market and being rented. And there also are many tools and spreadsheets to analyze a deal. The one that I used was the Bigger Pockets calculator for buy and hold. But you don't have to use that one in particular. You just have to find one that you like and that you understand. You just input all of your numbers and it tells you whether your numbers are going to make sense or not. When we started looking, we were starting to look for duplex that was a certain price. We were definitely not looking in the $500,000 range, but we needed something that would bring us enough cash through the rent to kind of offset our mortgage payment. So we were looking at $600 and under, and we ended up being at about $300 out of pocket every month. So right now, without utilities, we pay $300 instead of $1,000 of rent, supposedly rent, and we put a little bit of extra towards capex and repairs and maintenance every month. So that's pretty much it. It's not, landlording has definitely been quite the learning experience, but other than that, we got our tenant on January 1st to stop signing month-to-month leases and sign our personal lease. and she renewed her lease until June. So we're good to go until June. Like I said, at basically $300 of rent until then. But yeah, if y'all have any questions or if y'all need to know about any tools that I've used, yes.
I'd like to know how big your place is that you live in now.
Okay, so like I said, we lived in an 850 square foot apartment, and we wanted something at least as big, and we ended up finding each unit is actually about 1,600 square feet.
Nice.
We have a beautiful garden, beautiful yard, beautiful front yard, very nice curb appeal, except in the winter when everything is dead, but I'll work on that. But yeah, pruning trees also is going to be quite the experience, I think. But yeah, it's 1,600 square feet, livable space. I'm not sure that sunroom was included. We've got a little sunroom where we can grow plants in it. We have a 1-car garage and covered parking in the back for 4 cars. So it's pretty nice.
Not bad for $300.
I know, right? Anything else?
I was going to ask why you chose a lender from Lubbock.
Okay, so one of my good friends had recommended him. He actually purchased a home in Andrews a month and a half before we got this duplex, and he told me he had a stellar experience and that he had actually contacted that same person back in 2014 when he first into looking for a home, started looking into a home, and ended up not going through with it. But he went back with him this past year and ended up getting that house. And so yeah, it was really a great decision. However, when you get an out-of-town lender, it can sometimes be challenging to find a good appraiser, because appraisers will favor local lenders because they know they will get repeat business from them. So when we first learned about our appraisal, we were told that it could take 3 weeks to several months, and for it being a duplex, it was projected at like 2 months, if any appraisal at all. And we ended up getting that appraisal done after a week, because we had a really good lender and a really good realtor who pushed for it. I mean, they spent an entire weekend calling all of the local appraisers, and we ended up getting one that gave us the asking price. So that was pretty amazing. But yeah, that's why we picked him. And the reason I don't regret is that guy was excellent at communication and excellent at getting things done.
What's his name and what bank was it?
His name is Greg Lumen, and he's with Home Trust Mortgage. And he's out in Lubbock. He's really, really nice. He's a good guy.
May I comment?
Yes.
I gave Robin a really difficult time about using an out-of-town lender because it is difficult to get appraisers. That's the thing that delays sales. And when you're buying a kind of property where it's very competitive, you want to be able to offer an early close date. Not only that, but in Midland, they need 3 sold comps, and they really want them within the last 3 months. And they would really like it to be in the same neighborhood. You can't find that in duplexes that are actually reported where they have access to them. There are a lot of deals that fall through for lack of an appraisal. And that's why cash buyers are always king. But, so I told him, we could really be in trouble on this. And so we went just a couple days where we were at the point where we should have that appraisal ordered, and it wasn't ordered. And so I called Greg and I gave him a really hard time. And finally, after they still didn't come up with someone in a day, and I told him, look, this isn't about me and it's not about you, it's about the Dassys, and they need a home. And if I need to advise them to still go try to get another lender, I'm gonna have to advise them to do that, because we have to have this appraisal. Greg got his staff on the phone that weekend. I can't call an appraiser and ask him to do it. And Greg, who's making the loan, can't either. It's a particular department that does, because it's supposed to be arm's length. He got that staff on the phone. They called every appraiser in Midland and Odessa, because I also told him it needs to be a local one. We get appraisals sometimes out of Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. They don't understand this market. And then it doesn't come in at the price you offered anywhere close to it. And so you've already invested your money in inspections if you've chosen to do that, and your application fees, and you lose it. And so I said they've got to be local, and they found one. Then we spent the weekend helping the appraiser find the comps.
Who ended up?
And it was a miracle.
I don't remember her name.
Who ended up,
Doing the appraisal.
it was a lady in Odessa. And
I'll
I'm
look
sorry,
for
I
it.
don't know the name. And I guess if you wanted to have a property appraised for your own purposes, you could contact an appraiser, but if you have a lender involved, they're gonna want that at arm's length, so you're not gonna get to choose them anyway.
Right.
So, and maybe he can find his appraisal. But I was, in the end, I was very impressed with Greg, even with him being in Lubbock, and he very quickly came to realize he didn't know what was happening in Midland, but he got on board and he figured it out, and he did what it took. And we could have had people in Midland that wouldn't have done what Greg did for them and made it happen.
I think I found it, but another thing, that's what I meant, by the way, when I said find a good realtor. She was really feisty, she got things going, so that's what you want.
This Julie is awesome.
Julie, do you have cards to pass around for everybody?
I do have cards, if anybody wants them, I'll be glad to give you one.
Can't find her name, but I'll share it with you here in a minute. But another
Souls? Souls?
No.
No.
another thing that was kind of interesting was when we went to negotiate for that duplex. When we went to that first one, and we were already emotionally involved with that first duplex that we had seen, and then we came out of it, and my wife had to kind of pump the brakes because I was really pumped. I was like, oh, I want to get it. So she said, hey, you can't get into this like that because we're probably going to look at 15 of those, and none of those are going to work. And then we went to this one, and we were both super excited, but we said, hey, we may not get it. And so we had to start negotiating on the price with the couple that was leaving, and it wasn't that they were trying to manipulate us, but they did have a pretty bad situation that they were dealing with. And so the fact that we were able to accommodate their needs, they wanted us to put a clause saying that we wouldn't move in unless they had found a house in Austin. So just giving them that peace of mind and them knowing about that. I even told them I was going to take care of their plants because I love landscaping, and that helped us a lot. I mean, she even told me the day we closed, I'm so happy you're going to take care of my plants. So, but it's always, even when we started negotiating the price, it's never you against the seller. You've got to put the market against the seller and tell them that you're working with them towards a common goal to get that property transferred to you. When we talked about the price at first, we had to ask Julie to kind of look around and see all the comparable places for rent currently, and even duplexes were much lower than that. And we were very fortunate, like she said, none of the duplexes get sold because of the appraisals. There were 2 for sale on that same street, on the same block. There's 2 other duplexes for sale, and they were much lower, much lower. So we ended up giving her like a little premium on top of the prices of the other 2, but we didn't really know what she would say. And this is a good thing to remember as well. When you ask someone what's the very lowest that they will go, they basically make a concession in price. And the amount that they told us, like, oh, this is the least we would take, they dropped the price for, I think, $25,000. $25,000 is a lot, so I will take that any day. And so that's what we ended up doing, is going with that. But yeah, if anyone wants to talk about the financing in particular, I can go over that, but I don't know if anybody's interested in that. Yeah. Okay, so for people like us who are just starting, the best options I have found are to either go with an FHA loan, which is 3% down payment, and you can do it for 15 or 30 years. You have a required 1-year presence on the premises, so you have to actually live in the house for a year, and then you can get another house, get another mortgage, whatever. The bad thing about that is, since you're not putting 20% down as a down payment, you will have mortgage insurance on top of that. So it's an extra monthly fee that you have to pay for so long, and it is much higher than what we ended up going with, which, and as y'all want to take note of this, it's called the Home Possible loan. So that's a Freddie Mac loan. You put 5% down. You also pay the mortgage insurance, but it's a little bit less, and it goes away after you have 20% equity in the asset. So you don't have to keep paying for the entire life of the loan or to refinance out of that FHA deal. After we are done with this one, after the whole year, we're allowed to move away as well. Those are both pretty much first-time home buyer deals, except that the Home Possible is solely for that purpose. The FHA loan, you can actually have several. So after you get done with your first FHA loan, if you want to refinance that, you can have a second FHA loan, while the Home Possible is only for first-time home buyers. So that was pretty great. I mean,
So you don't have to pay the mortgage insurance?
I do,
How much
but
is
it
that?
goes away. I think it's 15%. It was significant on the FHA loan, but it was much lower on ours. I want to say it's probably in the 100 to 300 range monthly. So
On an FHA loan, you're gonna pay an upfront mortgage insurance premium plus pay monthly, and it never goes away. On a conventional, you'll normally pay monthly. When you reach 20%, if they don't offer to take it off, you need to contact them off, and they will. At 25%, a lender will usually automatically take that off. And it is a significant amount, I'd say normally, it's probably right between 100 and 300. There is a program right now through Prosperity Bank that they're doing, and they hold their loans in-house. Now, this is for an owner occupant, which that's what the Dassys are in theirs, and I don't know if they would do it for you, but they're not charging mortgage insurance. They're not requiring mortgage insurance. They're Prosperity, so you check that out.
They're my thing.
Yeah.
Still get the low down payment with them, or?
They have really low down payment. I'm thinking on some of them, and I may be confusing it for physicians, they can do no down payment, so I can't remember. I just don't have their programs memorized.
oh yeah, there's another option that I didn't qualify for, but VA loans also will allow you to get a house with no down payment. So those are good, but I was not in the military because I'm foreign, so. But yeah, any other questions? I mean, I can answer questions about the financing or landlording even, I guess.
Hey,
You're
Robin,
an
so
expert.
if you have let's say you make an offer on the property, right?
Mhm.
And you have to wait 3 months for your appraisal to
Mhm.
come in, who's on the hook for that?
Oh, you are.
Okay,
So the way it works, if I remember correctly, you give them your earnest money, and there's an option period where you get to look at the house, make sure everything is right. That's when you want to conduct your pest inspection, your home inspection, make sure everything is okay. And then after that, depending on the results, you get to make a second offer. So say I offer $100,000 for a home, and I notice there's a lot of issues, and the current owners are not willing to compromise on that. You can just say, hey, if you're not paying for those repairs, I would like to knock the price down so much. And then you get another offer in there, and you just go with that price. Until the appraisal, this is a very weird situation. It's mostly here, I think. I don't know if they have that issue in very many markets, but appraisals are very slow here because there's very few appraisers, and there's a lot of houses being purchased right now. But you're still gonna be on the hook for it, especially for your earnest money, because after your option period, your earnest money is only gonna be returned to you if the sellers back out on you.
okay, so let's say the appraisal comes in like 250 instead of 300. Then that means your bank will only loan on the 250 amount?
Yes, so
Even
even
though-
the thing is, when they lend the money to you, it's a percentage of the house, and so the way they see it is, we will lend you, to us it was 95% of the appraised value. That's why we got a 5% down payment. If they appraise it lower, the owners have to like work down their price, or you have to figure out another way to get to it.
May I address
Yes.
that? Okay, if it came in low like you're talking about. One thing right now, there's an additional form that's been added in the last year to Texas Association of Realtors contract that sometimes you can submit because there may be multiple offers going in. And that form deals with what if on this appraisal. So because some people may come in especially if they have plenty of cash in their pocket, and they may say, even if it doesn't appraise at this, I will pay up to this much, or I will pay this percentage of the overage up to this much to sweeten their deal if they're competing with someone that can't do that. You don't have to do that. But if that's not resolved, what happens? You know, and you get to that point, okay? And you're not on the hook. If you've included an addendum saying you have to be able to get your financing, okay? If you've included that, then you're not on the hook. If you had to back out, y'all couldn't reach an agreement, they're not dropping their price, you're not coming up with cash out of pocket, then you get your earnest money and you walk away. If you didn't include a provision that you had to be able to secure financing, then you're on the hook for it.
That's where we
Does that
got
make
really
sense?
lucky, because we had that clause in there, and then if it hadn't appraised for that much, they had, on the contract, I believe, when we talked about mineral rights, we had asked for those, and they signed it off, and then they kind of had second thoughts about it, but they already signed the contract, and so we were willing to kind of put that back up if because we don't even know what they're worth technically, but they seem to be really interested in them. So if even if it hadn't appraised, we still had that to negotiate. So you always need to have kind of a backup plan in case something doesn't work. So yeah, and the earnest money it stings. If you're gonna lose that, it stings. That is not fun, and I think it can.
It's usually about 1%.
1% of the purchase price. When your down payment is 5, it's a big chunk.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and that also counts towards your down payment if you go ahead and go through with the transaction.
Okay.
You don't have to repay another percent.
But if it doesn't, then you lose out on it.
Yeah. Anything else?
Let's give Robin a clap.
Thank you.